In, in this video, I'm going to talk about excess death benefits, or and other terminology that may be used for it is additional insurance liability, which uh, I usually call AL. There may be other names for it, but you find excess death benefits and the liability of it mentioned in SOP 03-1. And you may usually think of that of SOP 03-1 about sales inducement liabilities, but it mentions at the end of the paper that it also applies to excess death benefits. But just a disclaimer before I start, I don't represent the Society of Actuaries. I don't represent the company I work for, and I may not state completely true statements. I'm just trying to find out what I have found. I'm just trying to discuss what I found out in my understanding of excess death benefits and hopefully give you a better understanding about them. And so, first, we have this scenario. So, the way to establish your AL or your excess death benefit is you need to look at your excess death benefits through all time. So I have here an example. Let's say we have a 5-year product, and we're just going to assume this is a UL product that would make more sense for an excess death benefit, but only has 5 years left. And I only have an excess death benefit at 75 of 75. What is an excess death benefit, by the way? An excess death benefit is the amount that you pay above the account value of that is in that product or in that policy. And so, for instance, if the death benefit was $1 million and the account value at that time was only $100,000 and the person died, then you would have an excess death benefit of $900,000. And so we have here an excess death benefit of 75 to keep things simple. And we have assessments. And for the calculation of this. And in our case, we're going to have our assessments be COIs. And as you can see here, we don't collect enough COIs during the time of this line of business to cover the excess death benefits. And then that's where you need to establish an AL or an additional insurance liability. Then again, this is not necessarily to suggest that this product is unprofitable. Perhaps you received a huge premium at the very beginning and you're getting a lot of interest on it. But according to SOP 03-1, you're only comparing the excess death benefit with the COIs or the assessment, whatever you determine has the assessments that you receive. And if the benefit liability ratio is above 100%, so this in this case, um, I have excess death benefits exceeding our COIs. Also note here, I just threw out the discount factor, and so there's no interest rates here, just for simplicity's sake. Because this is over 100%, I need to establish an AL. And then so that's what I have here going on in columns H and I. And so what you do is you sum this up for all periods. And so I have my COIs of 50, excess death benefit of 75. And so I have a benefit liability ratio of 150%. So what you do is for year one, you multiply the COI by 150%. So I get 7.5. And so my total accumulated AL at time one is 7.5. And then I keep going on. So now I have 15. I add 7.5 more. I add 15 more because I collect 10 COI here in year three. And then at year five, I get 22.5 more from this 15, but I get to release my AL because that is also the time where I pay the excess death benefit. Now you may be saying, wow, this sure looks like a sales inducement liability on the same calculation. And yes, it is. It sure is. And that's why it all falls into the SOP 03-1. But as you know, as an actuary, things don't appear things don't end up happening as you expect. And so here I have another scenario. Suppose that you have your same scenario. You have your COIs and you have your 75, but alas, you have an excess death benefit at time 3 of 20 that you were not expecting. And what you were calculating here for the first 2 years were the 7.5 for your establishing your ALE, but it wasn't enough because you have an excess death benefit right here. So this is what you need to do. You have your total liability for the first 2 years that appears the same as the first 2 years. And then the next time you need to redo the sum from time zero of your excess death benefits and your COIs. So you get a new benefit liability ratio. And now I have 190%. And that is where you get to here. So you have your 190% times your COIs, and plus we need to do some unlocking. I'll talk about that here shortly. And so you get to your benefit liability ratio, and now this is your established L. Note that this 14 is just 14 because I also release 20 in my L from paying this excess death benefit. And then you just multiply this by 190%, this by 190%. But look, once I release 75 of AL, I'm left with -4. I'm 4 short. So here at year 3, I need to do an unlocking. I'm short by 4, so let's add 4 right here. Again, it's not like if you have a discount factor involved or an interest rate, it can't just simply be 4. But for simplicity's sake, I get to just add 4. And now my total liability, once I pay the excess death benefit, my ALE is 0 at the end of this period. And now the last thing I want to discuss is how does this apply to LDTI? Does excess death benefits affect your LDTI? Quick answer is yes. And that would be with your disclosures. You might have um, additional disclosures that you need to do because of SOP 03-1, including with excess death benefits. But now, if you were to ask the question, does LDTI impact the calculation of ALE? On the surface, no, it is. I don't think it should. I've looked all over in the documentation of ASU 2018-12, and I've looked other places. It mentions excess death benefits, the liability, but I can't figure out whether it truly affects the calculation. But you may see in your financial reporting, regardless, that because you changed your DAC amortization. I found this, I work with Poly Systems, the modeling software. I don't know whether you work with GGY Access or Profit or another modeling software, but in Poly Systems, the DAC amortization and the excess death benefits liabilities, they are so integrated that, and the model that we have set up in the way that we do, it is impacting our AL. And so we are going to have to recognize as we implement LDTI a change in our AL, our benefit liabilities, um, in order to get LDTI impacted.